I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is Psych Hacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is how to understand people. Now, on some level, everyone is a psychologist because everyone is trying to understand other people. Specifically, they want to understand other people because they want to be able to predict their behavior and to get what they want from them. And this is a worthwhile pursuit because the more you understand yourself and the more you understand other people, the more you can get what you want from life. Now, there are many, many popular frameworks for understanding people that exist in the world today. These are things like attachment styles, Myers-Briggs personality types, and love languages, just to name a few. There are literally thousands of formal and informal measures of individual personality. A few of these enjoy a robust body of substantiating evidence, like attachment styles, but even these tend to be inappropriately overgeneralized. Trying to understand other people through the lens of the individual, that is, through the lens of his or her personality or intrapsychic dynamics, is kind of a trap. It doesn't really work. The idea, for example, that if I understand my partner's big five personality traits or their love languages or their Myers-Briggs, I will then be able to successfully navigate a relationship with them and get what I want, is fundamentally flawed. In the vast majority of cases, this doesn't work. And that's because all of these personality metrics, they kind of only exist in a vacuum. To the extent that they work, they describe a person divorced and isolated from culture, context, and circumstance. And that is not the world in which people operate, and it's not the world in which we actually have to navigate relationships. For better or worse, a much better predictor of behavior than any of those other metrics are incentives. If you can understand the incentives under which other people are operating, then you will be able to predict their behavior with far greater accuracy than you would if you had all that other personality data combined. This is because the vast majority of people respond to specific incentives in exactly the same way. We're most of us not as unique and individual as we think we are. To use a very extreme example, the vast majority of people would give you what you wanted if you were to put a gun to their heads. Introvert or extrovert, or low in conscientiousness, INTP or ENFJ, sun in Leo or moon in Capricorn, they're all going to hand over their wallets. My point here is that when the incentives are sufficient to motivate action, none of that other stuff really matters. So to understand other people, you have to understand the incentives under which they are currently operating. And when it comes down to it, there are only two things that motivate action: the carrot, which is reward, and the stick, which is punishment. Or to put it another way, pleasure and pain. Different people consider different things rewards and punishments, and that's the origin of the variability in human action, but all people navigate the world according to these two pole stars. Now, the first thing you have to understand about incentives is that they're not equal. As I discuss in The Balance of Pleasure and Pain, these two things are asymmetrical. For whatever reason, humans have been constructed such that pain is more painful than pleasure is pleasurable. This means, among other things, that people will do more to avoid pain than they will to secure pleasure. This is why, according to John Gottman's research, a relationship must have at least 5 pleasurable interactions for every painful one to justify its continued existence. So if we were to kind of extrapolate from that finding, we can tentatively conclude that pain is like 5 times more painful than pleasure is pleasurable. And that probably means that the stick is 5 times more motivating than the carrot is. It is what it is. In any case, this means that if you understand the various incentives, the rewards and punishments under which people are operating, then you can predict their behavior with a high degree of accuracy without knowing anything else about them.
Sorry for the background noise, I'm just here in a coffee shop, but the important thing is people are trying to sell things or have people appreciate things that they do not like or want. You can't sell meat to a sheep. You got to find wolves or lions or leopards. So one of the biggest skills is to find the right people who want what you want and stop fighting with the wrong people who don't want what you want.
Now, the second thing you have to understand is that most people don't see reality clearly. They don't. In fact, most people are kind of sleepwalking through life in a kind of quasi-hypnotic state. So what does this mean? This means that with respect to what we're talking here, a stick doesn't really have to be a stick. A carrot doesn't really have to be a carrot. In actuality, a stick only needs to be a stick in someone's mind to function as a punishment, and a carrot only needs to be a carrot in someone's mind to function as a reward. And in many cases, psychological sticks and carrots are far more effective than our actual sticks and carrots in reality. This means to be an effective psychologist, you have to be able to see the world through the framework of a given individual's perception. Within that perception, there will be psychological carrots and psychological sticks that do not exist in objective reality, but that nonetheless exert an enormous influence over that individual's behavior. To give just one concrete example, consider how people-pleasing behavior develops in certain individuals. Because these folks have a distorted view of other people's disappointment, that it is far more dangerous or threatening than it likely is in reality, that person is going to experience the disappointment of others as this enormous stick. The stick doesn't really exist in objective reality, but that doesn't matter. It only needs to exist within the framework of their perception. And once you appreciate the magnitude of that stick, then their behavior makes sense. Within their psychology, they are appropriately responding to avoid an enormous punishment that would otherwise befall them if they were to disappoint an important other. Their reasoning is fairly rational. What's irrational is their perception. A lot of the work I do as a psychologist has to do with helping people see that a lot of the carrots and sticks that they're responding to only exist in their perception and not in, let's say, veridical reality. And this is the key to understanding people. If you can understand the incentives that exist within their perception, then you will be able to predict their behavior very accurately. It's also the key to getting what you want from other people. Apply the right carrots and the right sticks at the right time, and you can get pretty much anything from anyone. You're really only limited by the punitive function of society and your own conscience. And understanding which sticks are punishing and which carrots are rewarding to specific others is far more useful than understanding that they are an anchor or an INFJ or any other label floating around in popular psychology. Incentives are what matter. If you understand incentives, you understand people.